Hi everybody, welcome back to the Hobby Homestead. I am sitting beside my grow shelves, which are now officially up because it is now officially February. If you want to watch me putting together these shelves and hear about what I did differently this year as opposed to last year, then you can check out the video I posted previously. But today, we are going to talk about how I figure out what to plant. This is a viewer requested video. I love doing these. I'm going to show a little sneak peek inside my garden journal. And it's funny, when I had this printed, I had just finished my logo and I was really proud of it. And I was so excited that this was an official business. And so I printed this journal thinking I would need an entire book for 2025. So I put 2025 on the cover. And then I quickly realized that I'm going to fit many years in this journal, which is really the point. That's what I want. I want to be able to reflect back on past years. I chose to do a garden journal like this with blank pages after years of trying different garden journals. And there's definitely journals out there that will work for you, whoever you are and whatever you like to do in your garden journals. There are templates out there that I'm sure will work for you. And I found some that came very close. But at the end of the day, I want to be able to dictate how much space I put towards what. I want to have pages where I can sketch out my garden plan and not feel limited. I don't necessarily want it to be in grid form, and a lot of people I know like that. But I don't need my garden plan to be to scale at all. I just want to be able to sketch it out. And so blank pages are fine. And I wanted to be able to include a planting list that was as many pages long as I wanted. I wanted to be able to then break down that planting list into every month of the year for seed starting. I also wanted to be able to write about the weather every month. I was really inspired to do this by, oh God, was it Monty Don? I think it was Monty Don, one of his books I read on audiobook when I was on mat leave. I was just spending my days bouncing my baby and listening to these audiobooks. And it was really inspiring the way he talked about the seasons. At like opening chapters, he would talk about the seasons in this visceral way, like the birds chirping. You could almost hear it through his words. And the first signs of spring and all these different cues. I really wanted to capture that in my own garden journal because things change year to year. And I wanted to be able to capture it in a way that I could look back, say it's February now. Well, I can look back a couple Februarys ago and see what it was like compared to now. Not just in your average temperatures, but in how I experienced that month. And so I include that in my monthly pages. And I mean, here's an example, like September notes on the weather, hot, exclamation marks, a real extension on the summer growing season, very dry. I didn't have to say much, but looking back, I can then say Septembers are usually pretty hot, or this was a really odd one. Usually they're cool. We get our first frost in September, and this was an odd one out, so I'm not banking on that in the future. So yeah, I have planting list. I have month by month where I can record the weather. At the end of the month, I'll put the blurb in. And then I have my seed and root starting schedule. I also leave a page for garden goals for that year. I have this thing where I like to do a theme for the year, and sometimes that's retrospectively. So we'll have a year where we're just moving a ton of bulk material out of our driveway, like rock and mulch and soil. And so for that year, we called it the year of the wheelbarrow. And that was in retrospect. But some years I plan ahead and I say, I really want to do everything I can to get a good brassica harvest this year. So that would be the year of the brassicas. And last year, garden goals was to grow more pumpkins. I was very happy with my pumpkin harvest from last year. To get ahead of tomato diseases with new varieties. I also accomplished that goal. Continue working toward growing a year's supply of everything on the Dirty Dozen list. And that's a hot topic. The Dirty Dozen list, it's contested by some academics, but it's the idea that some plants, some produce, have a lot more pesticide residue on them than other plants. Now, the actual amount of pesticide on those produce isn't necessarily enough to hurt you, but I still, if I can't buy something organic because it's not available, or not readily available, or very, very expensive, then I'm going to grow that item in my garden if I can. just to be safe, just because. I am a drinker. Let me show you. No shame. I am having bubbly right now. I enjoy a bit of alcohol. We brew our own stuff, and so I like to drink it. So I am aware I'm putting toxins in my body. This is such a tangent. Oh my God. I'm aware that I'm putting things in my body that it doesn't necessarily want to process. And my theory is that I don't need to compound that by also eating a ton of pesticide residue. Like, my kidneys can only do so much, right? So I'm going to eat as cleanly as I can while enjoying the deliciousness of alcohol every now and then. Maybe more than every now and then. Anyway, that's my rant on the Dirty Dozen list and why I am just trying to eat organic when I can, and also environmental reasons, right? Like pesticides and herbicides, they may not hurt us in the quantities we consume them in or the volume we consume them in, but they are damaging to the environment when they're sprayed on fields year after year after year, and they can be harmful to the farmers who are immersing themselves in this pesticide-ridden environment year after year after year. Anyway, all of that came about because of my goal to continue working toward growing a year's supply of everything on the Dirty Dozen list. So my goals have been to prioritize things like strawberries, spinach, kale, green beans, apples, peaches, pears. Thank goodness I have space for these fruit trees. Peppers, blueberries, not blueberries, but I'm growing a lot of berries that can compensate for our lack of blueberry growing soil here. Grapes and cherries. So I'm not growing cherries, but everything else on the list we're trying to grow enough of here that we don't have to buy them. And honestly, that is a goal for 2025, but it's also just a goal for my life in the garden. I will always try to grow enough of all these things and other things to supply our family's needs for the year. Okay, did I already say budget? I like to put garden goals in for the beginning of the year and then also a budget, which is hilariously blank. And we did not spend $0 on the garden last year. I just didn't want to think about it. So I didn't put anything in there. So now we're going to get into how I actually plan out what I'm growing for each year. I have a planting list for each year. At first, it was a bit of work to write down everything that I want to start. It took actually an Excel file that I hilariously moved from digital to paper because I want to be able to work on paper. And I looked at all my seeds. I drew out my garden plan, rough sketch. I thought about everything that I wanted to grow. I did have a garden journal before 2025. I've always had one. And I used that to remind me what I started in previous years. And then I just made a big list. And so this year, I've got these 2 pages of just different species of vegetables that I want to start from seed. And then I typically will write the type of vegetable it is, and then the quantity that I want to start, although sometimes that's not relevant. It's more things like tomatoes. When I know that I have a certain amount of space for the tomato plants and I know how many I'm allowed to start, then I will write the quantity. And then sometimes I'll also break down the varieties that I want to start as well in this list. Sometimes it's not needed, sometimes it's helpful. From my big planting list, I then sketch out my garden. This year I have the spring-summer garden and I have the summer-fall garden. So there's that transition in there. And this is a perfect opportunity to tell you about an ebook that I wrote. It's all about succession planting. I really didn't think I'd become the person who sells digital products, but I had written this ebook thinking I was going to write a book one day. I still really want to write a book, like a paper book. But I had all this information in it that was so valuable to me just to reflect back on every year. It's what I've learned about succession planting every year for the last 20 years that I've been growing food. And it's very specific to my growing zone. So applicable to zones 4 through 6, I would say, because we have a limiting season. And it's really important to be able to stagger your plantings and also do interplanting, cram things together where you can get away with it so that you can get more bang for your buck out of your growing season. And that's what this ebook is about. I decided that instead of just holding it back and hoping one day I'd maybe get published, I would just put it out there as an ebook, and it's available through the link in the description. So if you're interested in that, please go check it out. And if you go check that link out where you can buy it, there's a sample there of what's in the ebook. So my spring-summer garden and then my summer-fall garden show the transition of certain things. For example, I've got dwarf peas in one of these beds in front of tomatoes. And in the summer, fall, that will be transitioned out to be beets and carrots. So I like to be able to keep track to make sure that things are always full out in the garden, that I never have something that's harvested and then the bed just sits empty. So when I'm filling out this layout that I sketch, these are like my main raised beds in the potager. I have a little garden patch over there, and then I've got all these extra random raised beds, some fabric grow bags, and then there's also the in-ground gardens like the food forest. And while I don't really plan out the food forest because it is mostly perennial, I do know it's a space where I can throw some annual vegetables as needed. I found that summer squash do well there. This year I'm going to stick some Brussels sprouts in the food forest area and see how they do. So I'll look at my planting list, I'll go through it, and I make a check mark every time I've found a spot for it in my garden layout. And this is not to scale. If you are new to gardening, then you could check out square foot gardening as a way to just wrap your head around how much space things take. But if you have been growing for a while now, even a year or two, then it should be fairly intuitive for you how much space things take. You'll have seen plants grow through their life cycle in your garden for at least a year, and you'll have an idea. Carrots take about this much space. I can plant them about this close together. My Brussels sprouts get huge. They take this much space. And so I just, having grown in this garden for a number of years, I know how much space things take and I can eyeball it. If you need more direction in your garden planning, then graph paper is your friend. There's, a lot of square foot gardening tools out there you can use. My friend Bree from Urban Gardening Canada has a free one on her website that you can use to plan out your garden. I haven't used it, in all honesty, because it's intuitive to me at this point because I've been gardening for so long. So if it's intuitive, then this method will probably work for you, just a sketch of your garden. You'll see in my planting list, there are some things with an M beside it. That's because they're getting planted at my mom's. I'm very, very fortunate to have an acreage just 10 minutes away from me. So when I want to expand certain things, like my no-till potato trial that I did, or like 60 feet of brassicas I plan to sow this year, then I can do that at her place. So there's an M beside those, meaning I don't have to find a place in this garden plan for those crops. And then I translate from this list into my month by month. And when I'm writing this information down, the seeds that I'm going to start in a given month, it's mostly by memory and intuition, remembering when I typically would start things, or just having memorized how many weeks before the last frost I need to start these things. But there are many things I forget from year to year when I have to start them. And so there are things that I'll be looking up as I translate them to my monthly seed starting schedule. I'll be looking up how many weeks before the last frost do you start eucalyptus, and then I can put that in the proper place if I don't have it memorized yet. But if you do this for a couple years, this kind of journal, then you start to get it memorized. It's kind of nice. And then what I'll do, once I've got it sketched in here on whatever month I'm starting, I want to go back to previous years. And I very sadly seem to have lost my garden journal from before this one. It was a 5-year journal and it was full. I don't know where it went. And I'm really afraid that purging Amy one day threw it out. Anyway, I really don't think I would do that. I don't know. So I only have 1 year to go back on now in this journal, but I will go back to that month in 2025. On the opposite side of my seed starting list per month, on the back of that page, I'll write notes, either as I'm starting the seed, just things like, oh, we had really poor germination, or this didn't do so well getting potted up, notes like that, right? And throughout the growing season, I will also come back to this, to the back side of my seed starting page for any given month where that seed was started. And I'll write things like, this ended up coming to harvest too late for my needs, or this plant really struggled under grow lights. It needs to be started later next year. I'll make notes like that on the back. So then when I'm planning for this year, for 2026, I have all that context to help me to decide if I want to tweak things in this current year. I work my way through each month, obviously, and I'll have the date when I start things, but it's usually general. So my seed starting schedule in the months ahead of me will say, start it in mid-February or start it at the end of February. But then I erase that and I write in the actual date that I started them on, if I'm on top of things, so that I can look back for context to find out in past years when I actually started them. And I do try to write on the back of that page when I'm harvesting those crops, especially if it's something that I don't just innately know when it's going to be harvestable. Maybe it's a new melon or a new winter squash, and I want to make sure I have time for it in my season. So I'll make a note of when it was actually harvestable. And then when I'm starting that seed, I can look at that and say, ooh, it was only harvested in October. That's really pushing it. We're usually getting frost by then. And so I can start it earlier, that kind of thing. Now, this is mostly just for seed starting, but there are some things that are not seeds that still make it in here because it's something I have to do indoors to prep to get a plant outside. And that is things like sweet potatoes and ginger and even my dahlias. Now, as we get past the last frost date, which is May for me, things start to shift a bit. We get to May, where I'm starting things for a fall garden. So things are shifting just a little bit. And for example, I've put in May, I'm going to be starting Brussels sprouts. And that's because I want to harvest them at Christmas time. I want to harvest them in winter. So I'm not starting them earlier. In June, I'm going to be starting things for the fall garden that are going to get planted out as late as September, maybe. I will start some brassicas at the summer solstice in June, and I will plant them out in as early as mid-July and as late August, really, when there is space that comes available in the beds. And even in July and August, starting things for the fall garden. So just because most things at this point are slowing down in terms of seed starting, there are still seeds I'm starting because I succession sow so diligently. There's never an empty space in my garden unless I schedule empty space because I need to top it up with compost. Like, it's always full of plants. It's always being harvested from. So every month actually has something. And even when we get to September. And then the other thing that I have in those later months in the growing season are winterizing tasks in September, October, November. I made a note last October. I planted 70 bulbs in the garden. November, my winterizing tasks were to wrap the fruit trees with wire cages to protect them from rabbits. Also mulching the beds with leaves, which I did in November. And then in December, we start like seed starting again, but that's things like microgreens for me. All right. I think that is it. That's all I really have to tell you about how I plan my garden. I mean, there's some more nuanced things that you can consider, like what are you actually going to eat? And trying to figure out how much of something you need to grow to be able to feed you for a year. And that really just comes from experience, from trying it year after year. For example, I now know that one of my raised beds full of beets is enough to feed my family beets for the year, but one raised bed full of carrots is not. And so I'm still working on producing enough carrots and timing them right so that my kids don't just eat them all through the summer. Like, they'll just do drive-by snacking to the degree that we have no carrots left by fall, which is a great problem. But, you know, if I want to plan to have carrots in my cold room over winter, I need to go about it a little bit differently and plant a lot more carrots, probably just a big batch of carrots that's enough to haul inside right before the ground freezes solid in the winter. I hope that this has helped. If you are also currently trying to plot out your garden for 2026, I would love to hear your feedback if this is something that you think would work for you, or if there are other tips and tricks that you use in your own garden planning. I'm always interested to hear what works for other people as well. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I would love to have you along for the journey. The 2026 growing season is just beginning and things are about to get real around here. Is that really cheesy? Whatever. Anyway, I hope that you'll come and grow with us.